Greetings. This is Doc Ock coming to you live and direct tonight from Black Facts Headquarters Central. Hopefully, everybody had a good day today and is ready for tonight's presentation of Black Facts or Tubular Black Facts, or even better than that, Doc Ock at noon and 9. Yeah. So, tonight, as always, we just like to give you a little reminder. Not that you really need one, because you know already what you need to do. Go ahead and give us a like, a thumbs up, and then subscribe below to the Tubular Black Facts channel. And once you've done all of that, don't forget to share it with your friends and your family. Yes, do all of that stuff, and then some. Now, let's see what we can do tonight for a story. Starting off with our proverb of the night. Let's see what we got. Okay. How about this one here? This goes along with our theme for the month. But it goes along with the fact that we're doing the Kiswahili culture. So, proverb for the night is Subira huvuta heri. Subira huvuta heri. Subira huvuta heri. And that means patience pulls success. Patience pulls success. And I'll let you figure out exactly how you want to interpret that. But I say it again. I say it one more time. Subira huvuta heri. Subira huvuta heri. Yep. Subira huvuta heri. Patience pulls or attracts success. Meanwhile, we're continuing on with our story about Ona Judge, the young lady who was never caught. She had been a slave on the Washington plantation, but this particular enslaved African figured out how to get up out of there and never have to return. So let's see how her story goes. We're on Chapter 2, Mount Vernon. And if you haven't visited there yet, I advise you to take a trip there. Best day of the year to go is on George Washington's birthday, because everybody gets in free on that day. So that's always a good time to go. It'll be kind of crowded, so go early and enjoy. Mount Vernon, the place where Ona grew up. Mount Vernon was actually an estate owned by George Washington that covered almost 8,000 acres of property in eastern Virginia. George Washington's family had lived in America for 4 generations. His ancestor John had arrived in America in 1657. The British government believed that since their explorers had landed on the coast of this colony, the British were now the owners of the land to do whatever they wanted with it. This was news to the Native Americans who had lived in America for thousands of years and who had very different ideas about what it meant to, quote unquote, own some land. Still, once the Europeans arrived, the drive to claim more and more land only grew more intense. And soon, European countries such as France and England began to fight over which country would control which area in the Americas. George Washington, like his father and his grandfather, fought for the British government in its quest to claim more land. This is important because when George was a British soldier during the 7-year French and Indian War in the 1750s, he became known to the people in New England as a worthy military man. He was unafraid to take the lead in battles, and while he experienced hard times, like losing a battle against the French and continuing to fight despite 4 bullets through my coat and 2 horses shot out under me, he also established a reputation for strong, unemotional leadership. One of the reasons why historians believe George was a good leader in military battles was because of his difficult times growing up. His father died when he was 11, and he did not get along well with his mother, Mary, who had given birth to 5 other children. By the time he was 16, he was basically living like a grown up. He never went to college, and he left America only once in 1751 when he went to Barbados with his older brother Lawrence, because it was thought that Lawrence's being in a hotter climate would cure his tuberculosis. It didn't help him, and in fact, while George was in Barbados, he contracted smallpox, of all things. When they returned to Virginia, Lawrence died. Besides his military battles, George spent most of his time during his 30s and 40s building up Mount Vernon. He formed 5 farms within the one property. Growing tobacco, wheat, and flax. The farms were spread across the property, meaning that if you needed to get from one farm to another, you would sometimes have to walk as many as 5 miles to go on horseback ride. To walk as many as 5 miles or wait and go on a horseback. Historians agree that George Washington loved being in Mount Vernon more than any other place on earth. It had become a massive, self-sustaining property. This took much organization and intensive planning. Besides the crops, he had fisheries on the Potomac River, and he had a whiskey distillery near the water. He designed the flower and vegetable gardens throughout the estate. He created a 16-sided treading barn to more effectively sweep away the wheat berries. So somebody asked me, did they have other ways of storing these grains or beans back then to make sure they stayed fresh? And I said, basically, I'm not sure quite what they would do, but they had to do something, I'm sure. So we'll figure it out as we go along. He designed the flower and vegetable gardens throughout the estate. He created a 16-sided treading barn to more effectively sweep the wheat berries off the wheat stalks. The wheat berries were then ground up for flour in the grist mill, also on the property owner. There were farm animals to be raised and used for food. Animals like chickens and pigs and cows. These were mules and often oxen that were tied to they were used in the field to pull along the heavy plows. George even built a dung repository, a place where the slaves piled dung from all the animals so he could experiment with it as a fertilizer. Okay. That's the end of that page. That was page 16. Excuse me. Now, moving on. George kept detailed records of all his plantation business and was determined to make Mount Vernon a success, completely apart from either his military or his political undertakings. Like all plantation owners in the South, George knew if he exploited the labor of slaves, he would make more money. George's entire life had been dunked in the miserable water of slavery. He had inherited 10 slaves when he was just 11, when his father died. So neither one of them were very old. George's entire life had been dunked in the miserable water of slavery. He had inherited 10 slaves when he was just 11 when his father died. This number got larger as George grew older, and the amount of land he owned spread farther and farther. When he married Martha, who was a widow, he increased his land holdings and his ownership of the enslaved. By 1773, there were close to 200 slaves living in Mount Vernon. Slave owners, including the Washingtons, referred to their human property as servants, not slaves. Right. Perhaps even way back then, among people who supported slavery wholeheartedly, this choice of words implied that somewhere deep in their consciousness, they knew it was wrong. If George wanted to create a gravel pathway in his gardens, he used the enslaved people on his plantation to move the earth and crush the gravel. If he wanted fabric made from linen, he used the enslaved people to to chop up the flax and turn it into cotton, etc. If he wanted barrels to be made, or laundry to be washed, or vegetables to be picked, or tools to be forged, he used the enslaved Africans. Mount Vernon became a showplace for sure, a mansion with a fancy red roof and black iron weather vane that visitors could see from miles away. George was immensely proud of his home and his lands. But if he hadn't owned humans and forced them to do what he wanted, he would not have been as wealthy. George owed his riches to the marginalized enslaved. Okay, that takes us about halfway through this second chapter. We're going to pull off to the side of the road right here because our time is about up anyway. We might have had a few more minutes we could have worked out there. 9:30. But you hear my clock going off over here, don't you? So let's move along. All you little dogies out there, you know what I need you to do. Take your little hands and take your little heads, lay them down on your little pillows, on your little beds, close those your eyes and wait for that sun to rise. And when you feel those sunbeams beaming down on your eyes, you know it's definitely time to rise and shine, oh children of mine. We will be black tomorrow. We'll do the same thing like we did today. We'll play something that's recorded in the at noon, and then in the evening, we'll be black here again reading another story. In the meanwhile, you all know what to do. Give us a like, a thumbs up, then subscribe, and invite all your friends and your family to go ahead and do the very same thing so everybody out there will be able to see me. All right, and I see Monad over there. What's going on, Monad? And right now, we're going to go ahead and sign off. This is Doc Ock signing off. We'll be black tomorrow.